In this video, we're going to go over the basic setup of creating a parent-child relationship between a whole bunch of chain links for our first animation. As you can see here, I've already gone ahead and opened the Chainlink version 1 Loxology project file that was included in this week's materials. Now, I've already gone into the Setup tab, and I'm just going to do a little housekeeping real fast and hit the O key to bring up my viewport options, and I'm going to turn off Show Lights and Show Cameras and, of course, Show Grid. This way, I can just really focus in on my rig and on my model. Now, you guys are going to be making a 10-link chain. Yes, 10, count of 10. So you're going to start off with 1, and then you're going to duplicate this chain link 9 times. Now, I'm going to do the first couple for you, just so you can see the process, and then you're going to pick up where I left off and continue this animation. Now, we need to create a rig that allows us to animate all 10 links independently from each other. We also want to create a rig that allows us to animate this as if it was being stuck or being grabbed by some sort of central pivot point, like a nail on a wall or a hook or something. Okay, so let's jump in and start making our rig. First and foremost, I'm in the item mode here, and I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate my chain item by right-clicking on it and choosing duplicate, this first one, from the option menu. I'm going to grab my item transform tool, which is the Y key on the keyboard, and just move link number 2 down into position. Just rotate it 90 degrees or so. There we go. And let's just look at the position of it. Yeah, I'm a happy camper. That looks really good right around in there. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. Once we've established their position in the scene, we need to go in and create what's called the setup pose for all of these chain links. Now, the reason we're creating a setup pose for each item inside of our hierarchy is to allow our animators to reset the values in the transform tab. So here I'm in the properties, so here's all of our transform information. I want our animators to be able to go and reset this item with values of 0 here, and get this item back to this position. Now, right now, because I've moved and rotated item chain link number 2 here, I'm getting some really weird, funky values in both my position Y and rotation Y. If I was just to put a value of 0 here on rotation Y, check it out. It's just going to go back to its original location. Well, we don't want it to go back to its original location when we have a value of 0 sitting over here. We want it to go back to, hit undo, that location. So we need this item to think that its current location is its original resting location. So it's resting or setup pose. Now, to do this, there's a couple things that we want to do first. First and foremost, before we reset and zero out all of our transforms, we want to go in and just analyze the location of our center point. Now, remember, we want all of these links to be connected to each other so that they kind of swing inside of a chain. Well, if this chain is hanging vertically, the axis of rotation would not be down here, it would be up here. So I'm in my center point selection set. I've selected that center point, and simply moving it up, yeah, somewhere like that is going to get us the result that we want. Okay, so make sure you go in and edit the location of the center point, but please do this before you zero out your transforms. Let's go back into item mode and just double check to make sure that chain number 2 is selected over here in my item list. Now, down below all of our transform channels, we have a couple options, these guys down here. If we were to just reset the position, check it out, it's just going to go back up. We don't want that. We want it to go back, we want it to stay in its current location, but retain a value of 0 here on the Y. So what we're after is this 0 command. So if I zero out the position and zero out the rotation, check it out. We've now established the resting pose for this item. Notice that when I select the item, all of the transform information has 0s for position, 0s for rotation, and the scale as 100%. This is how we want to hand this model over to our animators, because now they can reset all of this information and get the rig back to its original starting pose. Let's do the exact same thing for our top guy here. Go into our center point selection set and move it up. Let's go into the front view, do this with a little bit of accuracy. Something like that. Yep, happy camper. And let's let's zero out all the transform information for this particular chain link. So 0 positioned and I'm just going to 0 rotation. Okay, now we're ready to rock and roll. Now we're ready to start connecting these two items together. Now, there's nothing that says you can't go in right now and begin to animate all of these links as is. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If I was to fire off the rotation tool now, you can see that I can rotate this top link as it needs to be rotated, but this bottom link isn't moving at all, and that's going to make it a little bit difficult to animate, because ideally when I rotate number 1, number 2, and all the other links in the chain should also update and rotate at the exact same time. So we need to make a connection between the two. We need to make a relationship between chain link number 1 and chain link number 2. This is called parenting, and inside of Modo, parenting is really, really easy. Let me show you how it's done. First and foremost, go back over here to our item list, and we want to parent number 2 to number 1, and we can do so just by left-clicking and dragging chain link number 2 on top of number 1. There it is. So if I grab the first chain link number 1, check it out. There's some UI changes here that tells us that we've parented this together. The topmost item inside of our hierarchy is going to get the orange selection color. All of the children inside this hierarchy is going to get a blue wireframe color. You can kind of see it down here. It just has gone blue. Let's test it out. If I rotate my top link, yeah, check it out. Now number 2 is also rotating. One little landmine, though, that I want to make sure everyone's aware of, and it's this child compensate. Make sure this is turned off, okay? Just leave this off for almost everything that we're going to be doing here for the first couple of weeks. This is a landmine, so make sure that's turned off. And you want it off for both move, rotate, scale, and the item transform. So just make sure child compensate turned off. All right, so that's how easy it is to parent things inside of Modo, but it's not the only way that we can parent things inside of Modo. With this parent-child relationship, check it out. The parent is going to control all of its children. So if I rotate the parent, all the children of our hierarchy is going to be updated at the exact same time. But that doesn't mean we lose control over all of the children. If I select number 2, I still have complete 100% independent control as to where and how this guy is going to be positioned inside my scene. So that's kind of the cool thing about the parent-child relationship. The top guy is going to control everyone below it, but the bottom feeders can also be controlled independently from the topmost hierarchy. Let's do this one more time. I'm going to duplicate chain number 2, and I want to show you another cool new way of parenting inside of Modo. Right-click, duplicate this item. Because we've already changed the center point of this bad point, we don't need to change the location of the center point, but we will have to 0 it out. Let's just put that to -90. Let's put it down a little bit. Yep, that looks good. And I'm going to 0 out all of the transforms. So position, 0 out rotation. Let's just test the system again. Whenever you make an edit or an inclusion to the rig, always test it. If you go too much further in the process, it's going to be a lot more difficult to figure out where the problems have gone wrong. Okay, so here's what we need to do. We get 3 links of the chain now. They're all orientated the way I want it to be positioned in the scene. I've 0'd out all the transforms for these bad boys, and things are starting to look really, really good. Okay, but what we need to do now is change the hierarchy of number 3. We need to parent number 3 to number 2. Now, there's nothing that says we can't go in and just drag and drop like that. Okay, that will totally work. So now when I rotate number 2, number 3 is also going to rotate. Pretty cool, huh? But there's one other new way inside of Modo that I just want to show you. It's this guy, this drop action. Now, this drop action is, if we click on the menu, we have a lot of different options here. And what we want to choose is we want to choose parent. Now, what this allows us to do is that this allows us to drag and drop the item here in the OpenGL viewport onto another item. So check it out. I'm going to left click and drag this item, and you can see the name of the item has now showed up underneath my cursor. Now, if I drop that on top of this link, chain number 2, watch what happens. It parents it. Now, it looks like we have a little bit of a transform problem going on, and it's breaking it apart. So let me hit undo and investigate this a little bit. Let's select this guy. Yep, here it is. Here's my problem. For whatever reason, it's adopting a value here of -5.475 on the Y. So let's just 0 that out. Okay, let's just go down the chain, make sure everything's cool, and let's try that drop action one more time. It's always working. You can never turn it off. Well, actually, you can turn it off just by hitting none, but right now, when parent is turned on, or if any of these options are activated, your drop action is going to be live. So let's drop it on there, bam, and we're still getting that double transform for whatever reason. It's popping down. So I'll have to figure out why it's doing that, but it's pretty cool. That's the whole drop action system. It definitely makes working inside of the OpenGL viewport a little bit faster, and it helps us avoid having to go over to our item list and get all this working again. Now I might be able to force this guy back into his position, and once I parented it, it also seemed to rotate the wrong way. So let's just see if we can force it back into its current location. Let's zero out both the position and the rotation value here. Let's test the system again. Yep, that one works. Let's grab that item. Yep, that one works. Okay, and last but certainly not least, let's just check the top one. Make sure it's all working. Yeah, that's working too. Okay, so you saw me troubleshoot a problem here kind of live in the video, and it's important to remember that you can troubleshoot this, okay? Your rig is going to give you some funky problems. I've been doing a lot of rigging in my career, and the one thing that I've learned is that at any given day, the system can break, okay? Because what we're really accomplishing here in building is a machine, and that machine is a complex beast, and sometimes it's going to break. Just look at what it's doing, analyze the feedback your OpenGL viewport is giving you, and then work off of that information. For me, I just looked at what it was doing. I moved it back into position, and then zeroed out all the transform information, and that seemed to do the trick. So don't be afraid to troubleshoot, okay? You're going to need to explore this on your own. You're not going to have me as a resource going forward after this semester. So you might as well get used to trying to solve these problems before you go any further. Okay, so one last thing about your rig. Right now, it's pretty difficult to control and to select this rig, right? So if you go in, there's nothing that says you can't go into item mode and select on each one of these bad boys, but there are easier ways of generating control surfaces for us to manipulate. So creating a control surface inside of Modo is really, really easy. It involves adding a locator. Okay, and so this is the locator button inside of the setup tab. So if I click on it, check it out. It's just going to add a new locator at the origin of the scene. Now don't be fooled, it's not creating a new locator at the center point of this top guy. It's creating a locator at the origin. And if I show the grid, check it out. That's where it is, okay? So what we want to do here is that we want to have this locator be the control surface for maybe this topmost rig, or for this topmost chain, okay? So let me show you how this is going to work. The locator is down here in my item list. I want to call this global control. And this locator is going to serve as kind of the root locator for our entire chain. Now check it out. I'm going to parent this entire hierarchy to my global control. That way, when I select that one locator and move it around, everything in that chain is going to move, which is kind of cool. So, but again, that locator is really difficult for me to select. It's kind of small, and I want to have a system that's a little bit easier for my animators to go in and to mess around with. So thus enter some of the cool drawing controls that we have access to here inside of Modo. Now we're going to go over to the display tab, and inside the display tab we have some really cool options. First and foremost, size. If we increase the size, you can see my locator getting much bigger. We can also add a label to it. So if we wanted some text to show up inside our OpenGL viewport, we can just add a small little label, and you can see that it's popping up there. We can offset that label by a value, which is kind of neat, so you can play around with that. I'm actually going to turn off the label in its entirety. That's not what I want. What I want to do is change the locator shape, which is this tab on the right here. Now inside the shape, if we change it from default to custom, we start to get a little bit more control as to how this locator is going to work, how this locator is going to look. So one of the things that I would encourage you to change almost immediately is the style. We don't want to add this new custom shape. We want to replace that locator with this new custom shape. Now that we have a cube, it's a whole lot easier to select that cube and get access to our hierarchy. There's some other really cool things inside this locator shape. We can change the shape of this to pyramid or a rhombus. We have a lot of different really exciting, fun shapes for us to work with. In addition, let's go back into locator shapes. We can tell it which axis to align to, so we can play around with that. We can also change the size of our locator and just make it a lot bigger. There's some other options, and I apologize for them getting cut off the screen here, but I think you can kind of see where we're going. Let's offset my rhombus a little bit. There we go. Yeah, that's pretty rad. So now I just click on my rhombus, and I can move my chain wherever I want to go, which is pretty cool. Okay. Last but not least, let's check out some of the drawing options for my locator. So I've selected my locator. I'm in the 3D items tab, and under draw options, check it out. We can actually change the default wireframe color of this locator if we wanted to. If we change the value here from default to user, this wireframe color option now becomes to the foreground, and maybe I want the default wireframe color of that locator to be red. Okay, so you just get a tremendous amount of control when you're working with this. In addition, let's do the fill. The fill color, I'm going to make blue. There we go. I don't know why I do that, but now it's really obvious that that locator is a control surface for my rig. Okay. Now, one of the other things that I would recommend that you do is create control surfaces for each one of these links, because right now it's kind of difficult to go in and select each one of these links. So creating a series of locators would definitely help. Let me show you how to do this bottom one. It's going to be pretty cool. We're going to create another locator. And remember, every time you add a locator, it's going to be placed at the origin of the scene. Now, we need to snap this locator to the center of this item down over here. Now, there's a couple ways we can do this, and let's just kind of explore this process. So we have this new locator, and let's just name it real fast. Let's call this Link 3 Control. Okay, there we go. And what we want to do is that let's go over to our command tab over here. We want this locator to snap to the exact same position as that bad boy down over there. Now, there's a couple ways that we can do this, so let's look at it real fast. If we go into our setup tab, we have a couple different match and align positions down over here. Now, I think what I'm going to do is that I'm going to grab that guy, hold down the shift key, grab my locator, and I'm going to match and align the position. Now, oops, looks like I had the order kind of backwards. So it's child first, parent second, match position, bam. And now that locator matched the center point of that bottom one. Let's do that one more time, because the selection order is critical in this. I want this locator to move to the position of that guy down there. So I'm going to select that one first, that one second, match position, okay? And that locator is now perfectly matched to the center point of my link 3, okay? All right. I also want to parent this locator to this control or this link. So this is where that drop action stuff really comes in handy, because now I can just grab my locator, drag it on top of that link, bam, now everything's parented. Now, because I didn't zero out my transforms on that locator, it's getting popped out down there. So let's just undo that. Go back into properties, zero out the position values here, and now we can do that drop action. Bam, and again, for whatever reason, it's deciding to fight me today. So let's just kind of manually move it back into position here. And let's zero out again. There it is. Okay. Now that everything is parented together, I can simply just grab that locator now. And let's explore this ever so slightly, because I have it slightly backwards here. I actually want to have my chain 3 link parented to my control surface. I have it backwards. Oops, and I broke my system. So actually I have it backwards, because ultimately what I want to do here is that I want to be able to grab this locator and have it automatically select and control just this item. So let's get this entire thing out of my system here. Same with link number 3. I'm just going to parent it to the locator, and now I'll reinsert this back into the hierarchy by parenting it to chain link number 2. So now when I grab my locator, check it out. It also grabs chain link number 3, and I can rotate it, and everything's hunky-dory. Now, the reason I'm doing this is to get access to those drawing and control options for the locator itself. So back into display, locator shape. This time, I'm not going to choose a rhombus. I'm going to replace it with a circle. Let's do, yeah, a cylinder. Nope, not a cylinder. I want sphere, nope, plane, nope, circle. That's the one that I want. Okay, circle. There it is. And we're going to align this to the y-axis, so it's like a disc. Let's make this quite large. There we go. And also, we're not going to fill this thing. We want it to be completely hollow on the inside. So let's go back. Let's go back into our 3D items tab, add some draw options, and let's change the wireframe color to a nice red. There we go. And let's the fill is going to be where it's at. And oh, I'm sorry. To make this hollow, we need to turn off the solid option, and now it's just a circle. Okay, so I can very quickly just grab that circle, bam, like that. It's going to grab the length that I want, and I'm on my way. That's going to make it a whole lot easier for me to go in and adjust each individual chain link as I'm animating this. It gives us a control surface that we can very quickly select. Instead of having to grab the item, we can just grab the control surface. Okay. Another thing that you could do if you really wanted to, and this is entirely user preference. Instead of doing a circle, you can go back into your locator shapes. You can make it a solid, and then just give it an offset value. Maybe you want to push way out over here. That'd be kind of cool. I'm digging that. That way, and let's do this. Let's also kind of give it an offset value on the Y. So it's kind of in the middle of our chain link. Yeah, there we go. That way, it's a lot easier to grab just that circle there than it is to grab the chain link. Okay? So we're just making it easier for our animators to go in and to control our rig. All right, that's the entirety. That's the whole point of this process of creating control surfaces. Okay, so that's what we're going to cover today. So you're going to need to kind of take the ball and run with this project. I've shown you the basic setup for your chain rig. At the conclusion of this project, you need to have an animated chain, and you're going to be rendering out the animation. Please look to the assignment sheet on renderography.com for the details of this assignment, and please shoot me an email or come visit my office hours if you run into any problems. Other than that, we will see you guys next week.